Over the course of next 12 to 15 minutes, we are going to get acquainted with Google Data Studio. So yes, we are going to say hello to Google Data Studio, or GDS as I'm going to call it a lot of times, and get acquainted with the interface. But before we start, you need to have a Gmail account. So you can either use an existing Gmail account or you can set up a new Gmail account, because Google Data Studio, as it's with all other Google services, you do need to have a Google account. We are now going to get started with Google Data Studio, and I'm going to make a very basic assumption at this point, that being that you're a complete greenhorn as far as Google's Data Studio goes. So we are going to start right from the scratch. Now, in order to get to Google Data Studio, you can just go to Google and put in Google Data Studio, and this is the first listing that comes up right on the top. Data Studio Product Overview, Google. You can click it, and this is the address, the web link to Google Data Studio. That is datastudio.google.com, and it should bring you to a page like this. So this is Data Studio, as you can see. Data Studio, it gives us the option of starting a blank report. So I can just say blank and I can get started, but I'm going to get started in a minute. Or I can even use the pre-built template. So we have a couple of pre-built templates. So we have this one for Acme Marketing. Now this is a proper dashboard which just looked at how the different sites were trending in different countries and what were the top countries by sessions and how did the users change from 15th February till 15th of March, or let us say. So now we get a slightly different graph, because actually this is quite an interactive visualization dashboard. So we can just change this, change the durations, change the dates, and carry on and see how the top countries changed and how the user engagement changed and so on. And what you see over here, what this data visualization dashboard shows us, is quite similar to what we see in a lot of analytics reporting tool. So we can actually create something similar using this template, and we have the option of using this template by saying use template, and we have other templates as well. If you see in the template gallery, so we have the world population data, the world population as of 2013, the world internet users and growth, and again we can go and replicate this template if we want. So now, in addition to these templates, now if I go back to the template gallery, what it did was that it actually used a pre-built data source, which in this case was a Google Sheet, and Google Sheets are very similar to CSVs, flat format files for storing data. And these are the data for world population, internet, and mobile data as of 2013. Stored as a Google Sheet. So we have inbuilt data sets to play around with, and you also have the option of adding your own data sources. So we can create a data source, and with Google Data Studio, as you know, we have a huge option. I mean, there are quite a number of different data sources that we can use. In order to create the data source, we just go here, plus create data source, and so on. But I'm going to go back to my reports, and I'm actually going to get started. So when you open up Google Data Studio for the very first time, you're going to be here. Welcome to Google Data Studio. Get started. So I don't have a company name. and you don't need a company name. Even a single person can use it. I'm in the United Kingdom. English is my language. Accept. I suppose I'll just go in for yes, yes, yes. Thanks. Now please continue with your previous action. So now once you accept all the terms and conditions, then yes, I should be able to click on to an empty report and actually create and actually come to an untitled report, and I'm going to call it something. Let's just call it GDS. The inbuilt data sets that we get through Google Data Studio, things like world population and so on, all of them are present on this side, and yes, I can go and use them. Or I can create a new data source by clicking the plus sign here. So that's something we are going to move on to in a bit, but by now, by the end of this lecture, you should be able to I'm going to go back to my original page. So I'm here with GDS underscore experiment 1, and I've been able to set up a new report template, and I'm all ready to go. So at this point, you should have signed up for Google Data Studio, accepted the conditions. You should be here, and you should be able to actually use this plus sign to create a blank report of your own. In order to get started and simply just to get acquainted with the working of Google Data Studio, we'll get started with a blank report. So we click the plus sign and it's going to load up a blank report for us. And here we have different data sources. We have the inbuilt data sources and a data source that I added, but right now let us just focus a bit on the inbuilt data sources. And whenever you open up a blank report, essentially this is what it's going to look like. And if you want to add your own data, you can actually say plus create new data source. But right now I'm interested in the world population data, so I'm going to add this to the report. So whether it's your own data or it's one of the inbuilt data sources, you always have to add these to the report like so. And now this is all what we can do. So we have the dimension, country, and we have different metrics. Metrics are the variables, well, typically statistical variables that we can derive from our data. So if I just go here, we have typically values such as sum, average, and so on. So I'm going to look at and sum population. Actually, I'm interested in the sum of internet users. So these are the different countries. China, internet users, and so on. Now in order to add a chart, I'll just click add a chart, and let me just try to add a time series chart. So I'm going to click it here, and you can see this is how the population has increased over the over the date range, over the different years. But I can actually make this slightly better. So if I say default group country, now when I have the dimension as year, that turned up on my x-axis. When I say the breakdown dimension needs to be the country or the country code, I end up with the population change for the different countries, and I can even change this and get mobile subscriptions. So as you can see now, I have a proper line chart where I have the percentage mobile subscription changes across the time frame or the date range, which was 2005 to 2014 for the different countries under consideration. I also have the option of changing the theme. So right now I'm in the default mode, text, and so on. I can even change my theme to something else, and we have quite a number of different options. And that's too dark. Let's just go in for materials. Now I have a chart like this. I have a bright blue background. And we can change the layout, but actually I'm just going to continue to add, say maybe try to add another chart. Now let us add a pie chart, and again I come back to the different countries. So these are the different countries, and what we have, the metric or the statistical computation being shown here is the sum of populations. I'm going to go in for percentage internet. So basically this is the percentage internet of the different countries, and a pie chart like this is a pie chart is a good way of representing the percentage values, for instance percentage internet usage of different countries. And I can go on adding as many charts as I want, and obviously a report with just charts is not very useful. So if I go to insert like so, I have the option of adding text. I can add images, I can add a new page. So yes, I don't have to remain stuck on this page, and I can actually go and add more pages. And once I'm done, I have the option of making a copy. I can download this as PDF. I can embed this report in my own website, enable embedding, and this is the chunk of code I'd have to paste onto my own website. So basically these are just some of the basic things that we can do with a brand new report, and start using this brand new blank report to start putting in charts and our own insights. One of the great things about Google Data Studio is that it provides seamless integration with other Google tools, including things like Google Sheets, Google Ads, Google Analytics, Display and Video 360, Google Ads Manager, Google Cloud Storage, and even YouTube Analytics. And this is exactly what we are going to focus on over the next couple of lectures over the course of, say, the next half an hour or so. And that is, by the end of this portion, you will be able to read in data from a variety of different sources, including CSVs stored on your hard drive, and you will be able to connect to different analytic tubes, including YouTube Analytics, Google Analytics, and Google Ads, among others, and actually be able to read in their data into your own reports and then eventually work with those data. Previously you saw that I had also uploaded one of my own data sets in the data view window. You can do the same. It's entirely possible to upload your own data sets into Google Data Studio, and indeed that's really the point when you want to work with your own data. So now we'll just quickly touch upon some ways of reading in your own data. I'll just go to Untitled Report, and that particular data set is right here, but I don't want this data set, so I'm going to press Edit. So once we come in the edit mode, now you can see I can actually edit this report and continue to work on it, because the chances are that when you work on your analytics, you may not work on it continuously. So when you come back, the first thing is you edit, and I can apply themes and so on. But right now I'm going to add data. So I go over here and press Add Data. Now I have some options of adding my own data. So if I go to my data sources, it seems I already have some data. I have these data, you can see they're owned by me because it has my name over here, and you have data from Google Data Studio because I've been using those. So once you are able to add data, this is where you can see what all data you have access to, both from Google Data Studio and from your own data sources. So I'm going to connect to data. Now when you want to connect to data, we have the Google Data Studio connectors like Google Analytics, Google Ads, Google Sheets, and we can even carry out file upload, BigQuery, campaign managers, extract data from Google Cloud Storage, YouTube Analytics. So if you have a YouTube channel, you can connect to YouTube Analytics. You also have partner connectors. So you can build your own, but that's beyond the scope of this training. But there's possibility of getting data from AdRoll, Ad Analytics. Again, it's going to fetch data from Facebook, Snapchat, and so on. Analytics Canvas, Amazon AWS. So for Amazon seller data, Amazon ads, Asana connector. So we have Bing ads, Bird Eye. So we have a lot of choices. I think a lot of these would be paid, but anyway, we'll just stick to the simple and free option. So uploading data from Google Sheets, that's going to be free. So yeah. Now in order to upload data from Google Sheets, it goes without saying that within your Google Drive, so I have my own Google Drive, so within your Google Drive you do need to have some Google Sheets. So let's just press this, all items. So you can actually see that these are the data that I have access to: D_LULC train, C_LULC validation, and Britain elects public opinion. So this is my worksheet. It tells me what kind of data are those. Westminster. So these are basically Westminster voting intentions from a couple of years ago. So because I had it in my Google Drive, I'm able to access it in the here and now. So I can say use first row as headers because that's where you'll have the column name, most likely to have the column name here. You can include the hidden and filtered cells, or you can exclude them. The column headers should be unique, and if your column doesn't have a header, so if you don't have a column title, that won't be added. So we can add. And this is going to take some time. So now once it's done, it asks me that you're about to add data to this report. So you can say don't show me again. Oh, I don't tick that. So basically we can add it to this particular report. And while at it, I'm going to add another data source, and I'm going to add it from my computer. So basically you can carry out file upload, and if you do file upload, you can only connect CSV files. So if with Google Sheets your file has an XLS extensions, like in my case, if I go back to my Google Sheets, this one did have XLS extension, and I can try and upload this. But if you want to upload things from your own hard drive, it needs to have a CSV extension. So now we are here with file upload. It just tells me, so this was a file that I uploaded previously, and you saw that cpi.csv. So I can go here, click to upload files. So it's uploading, it's processing, and once all of that is, and that's going to depend on the size of the data that you want to upload. So it's been uploaded. Once it's uploaded, you still have to add these data, and yes, you can even create new data set, but that's, most people are unlikely to take that option. So again, add to report. So basically this is how we add external data from Google Sheets and CSV files from our own hard drive into a given report. I'm just going to call my report a data report. The great thing about Google Data Studio is that it allows us to access data quite seamlessly from other Google services. So now I'm going to go here, add data, and these are the different Google connectors that we have access to. So in addition to Google Sheets and uploading CSVs from our computer hardwares, we can also connect to BigQuery, Campaign Managers, Google Analytics, Cloud Spanner, Cloud SQL by MySQL, if you have MySQL kind of data, Google Ads Manager, PostgreSQL, and so on. And of course, YouTube Analytics, and essentially we can connect to these. And if you have things like, if you need to know more about your YouTube account or how your Google ads are performing, then Google Data Studio is a very good way of going about this. So let's see what happens with YouTube Analytics. So now I want to access my own YouTube Analytics. The first thing about making these kind of connections, say connections to YouTube Analytics or even Google Analytics, is that we decide what kind of data source access we'll be providing, because now we are connecting to your other accounts and that may have sensitive information. So owner's credential are that we use the data source's owner's credential to access data through this data source, and basically this enables the users with permissions to this data source to access data without having access to the underlying data. And viewers' credentials are, well, it requires viewers to supply their own credentials to access data, and users, they should also have the permission to access the underlying data set. So I'm going into viewers' credentials because I don't want anyone else accessing these data. If you're happy having other people access your data, then owner's credentials is a better way. But in my case, I want to restrict who can access it, and I would like other users to have permission to access the underlying data set. So I'll go in for viewers' credentials. And now I have to authorize. Data Studio requires authorization to connect you to your YouTube Analytics. So I'll be connected to the YouTube Analytics of my account, unless I have the permission to access the YouTube Analytics of some other account. Authorize. It's going to tell me to sign in. I'm going to sign in Minerva's Data Lab. That's requesting authorization. I'm going to authorize. So I'm going to add this particular YouTube account in order to get the analytics of this particular account. And obviously you have the option to add a personal YouTube account and get those analytics, or get brand analytics. So I'll go with this one. Let's just add this. I'm about to add data to this report. Add to report. And now I have data pertaining to YouTube Analytics, and I get all of these data. So these are the different videos I have on my YouTube account, and average viewer percentage. So I get these data, and additionally I also have data pertaining to country code, date time, external user ID, and so on. And essentially these are different data types and different part of my YouTube analytics that I can explore, and we are going to learn how to explore data like these and other data further on. But the key takeaway from here is that now when I've added my YouTube analytics, I can actually see straight away, and I myself didn't know how my videos had been doing. So it turns out that this particular video, basic geographic information something, had an average view percentage of 58.99%, and it seems that something related to Python programming was only at 12.39%. And of course then there are other data fields to explore and so on. But essentially if you want to access your own YouTube account and analytics, then you need to go step by step, decide which YouTube account you're interested in, and then access those analytics straight into Google Data Studio. Now, after you've been able to connect to YouTube Analytics, that is if you wanted to, let's have a go at Google Analytics. And now I'm going to try to connect Google Analytics to my Google Data Studio. Again, I'm going to change the owner credentials to viewers credentials, because users, they'll have to have permission to access the underlying data set, and that makes things more private. But obviously what kind of access you want to provide is up to you. So I'll go with viewers credentials. I'm going to authorize. Again, every time we connect these kind of things, we need to authorize. And then we have to say which account we'd like to authorize. So I would like to authorize this particular account, my personal account. And let me see, I have this one, so I'm going to actually try to, I have access to this Viva thing. I'm going to try to access this particular account. It's from a defunct website, so I'm going to add this, and let's see if there's anything in store for me. So I'm about to add this data to this report, add to report. And well, I don't have much data going on. I don't have any data here, but essentially if I did, then I would have data in these categories, things like in acquisition campaign, acquisition channel, acquisition medium, campaign, browser version, browser size, app name, and so on. So essentially the way we had some data for YouTube Analytics, we'll also have data for Google Analytics, and these are the different kinds of data that we'll have, different kinds of data categories that we'll have. And we can, depending on the kind of thing you had Google Analytics for, you can explore things like the app name, the affinity category, the ad format, and see which ad format is working, the continents that your ads are working well in or you're getting your clicks from, and so on. Now that you have a handle on reading in some of your own data and possibly connecting with your own Google Analytics and things like that, I'll briefly introduce you to some of the most common data types that we are going to encounter when we work with Google Data Studio. And it doesn't matter what kind of data you have. Typically, there are only a couple of different data types that you are going to encounter. And if you worked with any kind of data, the chances are that you may have come across them before. And in the case of Google Data Studio, those different data types, as you can see them here, they're represented by different symbols, and they're pretty much self-explanatory, but I'll just take you through them. So ABC refers to textual data. So basically any data that has any kind of text associated with it, that is represented using ABC. So in the language of statistics, these data can be regarded as factor data or categorical data. So if we have, say, things like category, small, medium, large, then they are going to be a part of ABC or the text data. Now, this particular symbol that you see over here, it corresponds to a certain variable called country. It could even correspond to something known as city. But here, these are geographic variables. So these are very specific variables and they have a geographic dimension to them, and they typically come into play when we work with geographic data with a view of mapping and geographically mapping some kind of a spatial pattern, say global populations or regional GDPs, and that's something we are going to encounter when we work with mapping. Then we have this calendar symbol, and as you can see right next to it we have year. So these are typical time series or temporal data, and yes, they come into play when we work and plot time series data. So every time you see this calendar kind of a symbol, those are temporal data, and that's typically going to have the values of a year or date, month, year, or month, year, and those are things that we can visualize. The change in a quantity, say prices of a stock changing over time. So those are those kind of data. Then we have this symbol 1, 2, 3, and right next to it is number, and as the name suggests, these are numerical data. So things like integers or float values. So things like, say, the GDP of a country, the population, the number of records. So both discrete and continuous variables, and by discrete I mean something like, say, the number of students, and continuous variables, say things like weight and heights, they are going to be represented by the symbol 1, 2, 3. And yes, we can convert between different data types, and that's something we are going to encounter further on, but typically these are the most common data types that we are going to encounter in here and with most data that you end up working with in real life. Now, apart from YouTube Analytics and Google Analytics, we have the option of Google Ads, and we can connect to Google Ads performance report and analyze those data. It's going to follow the same procedure as before. So this is a Google Ads account I have access to, overall account fields. Again, I'm going to change it to viewers credentials as usual. It's the same procedure as before, but it's a good idea to go through it given that so many people use Google Ads. I'm going to add to report, and let's see what we get here. So these are my Google Ads. I get ad group. This is my dimension, but actually, because obviously I don't have a lot going on with this particular data set, so what we can do is look at the different attributes that you'll hopefully get with the proper Google Ads report. So we have ad group, we have ad group state, ad group status, ad types, advertising channel types. Let me just try to change it to advertising channel types. And we have affiliate locations, we have ages. Let's see, age, audience type, campaign, city, click type, conversion category, day of the week, device, what device was that ad accessed from and hopefully clicked from, gender, if that information is available, metro area code, network, parental status, quarter, region, search keyword, and so on. Segment conversion. So basically with Google Ads we get a huge amount of data, and including things like budget. So let's see what's the budget like. and things like which country was that ad accessed from, and so on. Let me see if I can get the budget. Oh well, let's just look at this. So anyway, we can see the advertising channel, we can see the value converted, and so on. And obviously, depending on how active you were with Google Ads, these are the different fields that we can experiment with and eventually analyze.